Hey everyone, how's it going? This is Jim Matthew, bass player for Damage Radio, and you are watching Case for Bass.
I'm Anthony Gethers.
And I'm Greg Weiss.
And we are the hosts of Case for Bass.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to yet another episode of Case for Bass podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Gethers, and today I'm here with my co-host,
Greg Weiss. And welcome back, everybody. We appreciate all the comments and the interactions on our latest episodes. And we continue to keep bringing top bass players from all around the world talking about great things. And tonight we have a great guest. We have Jim Matthew, and he's the bass player in Damage Radio, a local band here in the tri-state area. And we're looking forward to some real interesting talk and some really cool basses coming up from Jim. And so let's get this underway. And first question will come from Anthony Gethers.
All right, first and foremost, big round of applause to Jim Matthew of
Welcome, Jim.
Radio.
Hey, thanks so much, guys, for having me.
Awesome, man. And thank you for saying yes.
Yes.
Jim, I have known from Damage Radio. I've seen you play several times, but I never really approached you. You were doing your last show at the Hudson Water Club. And me being me, I like to have fun and dance around like a maniac. So, of course, we ended up making contact because you saw the back of my hoodie. And then once you made contact, I told you about our podcast, and here you are. Yep, so.
Yeah, not too intimidating at all, Anthony. I saw your hoodie with yourself on the back of it, and I'm like, oh my God, it's a real bass player that's here tonight.
No, dude, we're all look. The bass world has all levels, man. You know, it's like, look, going to Vic's camp, I was intimidated, but then once you realize that everyone's there, but we're the young guy who was a prodigy, 13 years old, and then you're the old dudes who are like 78 years old who are still playing the blues scene. So
yeah, we all have the same passion. You know,
exactly.
We all started in the same place.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you know, whether you're talking to Billy Sheehan, Victor Wooten, or you're talking to Jim Matthew, it all started somewhere.
Exactly.
That ignited, you know, the passion to play, be a low ender, not a guitar princess, and you know, you always continue for excellence.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, so first and foremost, did you choose the bass or did the bass choose you?
Good question. So I was totally into the rock scene as a teenager, and you know, I loved Aerosmith, I loved Zeppelin, and would always want to get into a band. And one of the things I found early on, guys, and you probably have seen this as well, is that all of the bands that you tried to get into didn't have a bass player, and that was one of the easiest ways in order to get not only learn an instrument, but get into your choice of bands as well. So I chose the bass originally, but I think the bass kind of took over, and basically it's a feeling, right? And when I first started playing, I didn't have an amp or anything. I bought my first bass. It was a Fender copy, and basically just put my chin down onto the bass and felt the vibration to basically feel, you know, what I was playing. Is it correct? Is it what we're doing on Black Dog? Is it what's going on Walk This Way? And that was kind of, and it's just evolved from that. So I still need to feel that bass even today, now that I have an amp.
Oh wow, okay.
You have an amp.
Yes.
We're going to make that clear. You do have an amp now.
I do have an amp, you know, and it's funny, but when Anthony saw me, I was going direct in, so I did have a Sans amp, you know.
The world's changed.
Rig, yeah. So
okay. So how long have you been playing for? Because obviously you said you bought your first bass. Like, we've had a history with a lot of our guests, parents or through another relative. So when did you? How long have you been playing for, and when did you buy your first bass?
I think I was about 12 years old when I bought that first bass. It was probably about $120 or something like that. And I've been playing, you know, on and off. You know, when my son was born, I didn't play for, you know, 10, 12, 15 years. And my wife got me a new bass for my 40th birthday. And, you know, somebody asked me to fill in on bass at a party. And I can't remember where I put my car keys sometimes, but he gave me the set list, and I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that Elvis Costello song, and it just kind of came back very quickly. So for some reason.
That's excellent.
Wow. Okay, Greg, we're gonna bounce back and forth between Greg and I.
Yeah, sure.
Yep.
When you started playing, you were talking about being the bass player, and so this was your friends. This was a band you wanted to be in that didn't have a bass player, and what when after that happened, were you the guy playing bass in like 3 different bands?
Originally, it was just friends, like you mentioned, Greg. And it was basically, we'd get together and we'd all suck and we'd try to get better. And then little by little, the people that would be better would find different bands. And ultimately, I think that happened to all of us as we progressed. And, at the risk of being a bass whore, yes, you wind up playing in multiple bands only because, there's other friends that, hey, can you fill in for this? Hey, can you join in this band? And you wind up being a piece, of that band as well. And it just, you try not to, have any conflicts with dates. And it's basically always, kind of first come, first serve.
I mean, I always say that we're blessed because we grew up in a land called Rockland.
Yes.
Yes.
And that we have a special, cause in this world to keep the music going. And it's, I know in my case, it was first it was guitar and, eventually it became bass later on because I was more attracted, even though I knew all the guitar parts in Rush, I'm in my car, I'm playing all the bass parts and I'm going, why am I playing the bass parts if I know all the guitar parts? Yep. And we hear from a lot of players that it started as a social thing until, you start gigging and then you go, I want to gig and now I want to gig more. And did you start going to open mics? How did you get out?
I think the first few gigs that we've ever played were variety shows, Battle of the Bands.
Let me interrupt you.
You were actually in a Battle of the Bands?
Yeah. Wait,
well, let
me jump in for just 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Whenever you say someone says variety shows, I think of vaudeville.
I think of the Brady Bunch. Yeah. I think of the Brady Bunch when they had to earn the
silver platter,
earn the money, the silver platter.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So when I say Battle of the Bands, I mean I think let's use the term loosely. I think it was sponsored by somebody from the high school that knew people from the high school, and North Rockland was pretty large, so there was a big population there. So he could easily drum up 2-3 bands, and basically he sponsored it and put it together. The Knights of Columbus and Haverstraw, and that was the first Battle of the Bands that we played.
Nice. Do you remember the songs you played? Do you remember the song list that you worked with at the time?
I remember I had to play and sing Mama Kin. I think we played.
Oh wow!
Kinks. Destroyer, I think that was one.
Oh no!
Yes. I may have been a Bryan Adams song in there somewhere too, but it was. I think we all got about 5 or 6 songs.
Okay, I want to piggyback on what Greg said earlier. I think growing up in Rockland was kind of a blessing because you had a lot of kids that had the financial well-being to get these cool instruments. I was with a bunch of guys that had money, so when a keyboard like that, I remember them on the Yamaha DX7 came out, and prior to that, there was a guy, Neil Siegel, we played with. He had the money to buy all these synthesizers. So you mentioned Battle of the Bands. We were playing Rush. We literally did a YYZ as one of our songs. I think like in a 10th or 11th grade. So I remember, and it wasn't just the 7/16 time. It was the keyboard part that when I heard him do the
one note,
the one note, and it's blasted to the speakers. So here I am.
Made it real.
Yeah, here I'm 16 years old. I'm going, we're actually pretty good. Just because that one note from that keyboard made everything sound so
it makes all the difference for sure. Yes.
Yes.
It's very cool. Where did you stay in the area? Did you move on? Is there like a bunch of years you played in college bands?
No, I didn't play in college.
Really? No
I didn't
college?
play. I went to Pace
Okay.
over in Westchester, but yeah, didn't play at all. That was during my hiatus period. My son was young, had just gotten married, and so gave it up for a while. So moved up to Orange County, lived in Chester for.
Yeah, I'm in Middletown.
Oh, okay, perfect. and then joined a band while I was up there as well. So playing the local area there, Monroe and a number of different venues. Some of the events, the town events, and so on.
Okay. Well, so from that point on, what was because you mentioned earlier that you have 11 basses.
Yes.
So you had your Fender copy bass at first.
Yeah.
And then you went to what was your other bass? Actually, what was your first amplifier in addition to your second bass?
First amplifier, oh God, I think I got some type of Sears, 15-watt amplifier to basically hear myself. This was years ago. And I think the first other amplifier, I got a PV 75, I think it was, TKO 75, which I still have someplace. That thing is a tank. So I think, sometimes I play outside on the patio, and that's what I wheel out there.
Okay. Awesome. When you play, as far as who are your major influences and who are your major influences when you play?
Major influences. Wow, so many. I say Paul McCartney, Geddy Lee, Steve Harris.
Yeah. we are not worthy.
There's just so many. Then I started listening to Marcus Miller and Victor.
Yeah. No, you keep going. We're not worthy.
Wow.
But so many different influences. James Jamerson. I would hear the story about how he played. Oh God, what was that? There was one song that they enticed him to play. He was drunk at a bar and he just laid on the floor, playing the song, not rehearsing it or anything. And
that was Marvin Gaye's "What's Going On."
That's what it was. Yes.
Yep, that was the song. Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. And just to think how he played that song, incredible. We had a guest, Yuka Tadano.
Oh God!
During COVID, she transcribed that song.
Oh wow!
And
30 others.
And 30 others on top of that. It was a lot of transcriptions of James Jamerson and Bob Babbitt's bass lines, and just absolutely incredible in how she did it.
Look, between her ear and the pen, and it was her COVID project.
Yep. Yeah.
Wow.
And what I said about it is that you can always cheat in Motown by reinterpreting feels and where ghost notes are.
Yes.
And she really just accurately reportrayed it. And watch her videos. Anybody here? Google,
I'll send you a couple of links.
Yeah, absolutely.
Her Instagram and her YouTube is just over the top. Jim, I gotta ask: when you grew up, what was the music playing in your house, and were your parents musicians?
My parents were not musicians, but we grew up in a WABC, WNBC house, and in the car. So I always, and I still have a 70s on 7 station that I always listen to on Sirius XM. Brings back a lot of memories. Some of the bass lines.
My girlfriend's always on the 70s on 70 station.
Yes, the 70s bass lines, Anthony, are just like off the charts. Like if you listen,
would you call yourself a power pop guy?
I wouldn't say necessarily power pop. I love the power pop as well, but I listen to everything from the Carpenters to whatever was on the radio, and then you listen back to it and you're just like, there were some good bass lines on some of this.
Incredible.
There was a lot of, I hate to say it because now, and I don't want to sound like a commercially old man saying back in the day, better songs. But if you think about the arrangements that they had
arrangements, there you go.
Arrangements and composition were the big thing.
Yes.
So you don't realize it until you look for new music now, I will listen to new music, but they sound old. I don't go for bands that have a newer sound. I go for bands that sound more vintagey,
retro.
Yes, absolutely. And
Yes.
that's what I look for. And I find that when, like, I'm not going to look for a Taylor Swift. I don't want to find a new version of her.
Right.
But I'll find a new version. There's a guy, I think Jolene Nadoda. He sounds like an older. It's like Motown meets like doo-wop from the 50s. It's and you hear the drums. The drums sound like they went to a Stax Records recording, like an Otis Redding recording, and they literally took the sound of the Stax. They took Donald Duck's sound of his bass lines, flat
Donald Dunn, not Donald.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Duck.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I know you guys.
Trying to put that together.
Yes, thank you. So try to say that several times. Donald Duck Dunn. So took his bass line, the sound of his bass, to very vintagey, flat wound Fender Precision bass. Same thing with Steve Cropper, and it's almost as if they purposely listened to Stax Records and decided to write material that almost replicated that sound. So as soon as I heard that, I fell in love with it. So newer band, they came out in 2019, but they sound like that. So I will listen to new bands, but they have to sound like they're vintagey, or as Greg said, retro.
There are a few of those. Yeah, there are a few of those out there now.
That's what, and I realized there's a lot of those bands that are making some bigger hits. And a lot of them are from Australia, from the UK, which of course has always been from the UK. But that's the stuff that I would go for and listen to now. All right, let's fast forward into your Damage Radio years, because you skipped out 15 zillion years because of your family.
Also, between your child being born and your wife getting you a bass.
Exactly.
Yeah, so in Orange County, what was that?
What was the bass?
Oh, she got. I think it was a Dean. It wasn't a high end bass. It was a Dean. And it was very light. It was nice. Originally when she gave it to me in the case, I was like, oh, she got me a shotgun. And and then I opened it up and she's like, oh, you should start playing again. I'm like, yeah, that's a good idea. So, and that she just opened the floodgates after that. And then you had an extra couple of bucks, and
you're back in it.
Oh, got to get a couple of Fenders, got to get a couple of Warwicks, right? So.
Nice. Now your wife was at the show, and I noticed that she was wearing the cowboy hat. She was dancing. Yeah. Obviously, without even having to ask, she's obviously very supportive. Because you don't get many. You don't. I hate to say it. I find it's very extreme. You either get the spouse who loves what you do, or the one who does not like what you do at all.
Ignores.
Yeah, exactly. that I think that tends to be even worse. If you get the one that just does not like what you do and totally ignores it. Almost as if she wants it to go away.
Yeah.
Maybe this will go away. Maybe this is a trend. But
I'm voting present on that issue. So
she's.
Turn into a weekend warrior. So
I gotta say she's been super supportive from the beginning, and she loves coming to the gigs. She has her favorite bands, and she has her she's like, okay, this band is pretty good, but I like the stuff that the other band plays, and I can dance to that one, and that one was a little bit more current, and she's all about the top 40 now, so she likes that stuff.
Really?
But she likes the older stuff as well, and anything that has a beat is what she likes to dance to. So I'm like, I'm your man, I'll get you moving. So
nice.
No, that's Disco Stu knows his place.
Yes. But I like the fact that she's very supportive. Well, interesting enough is that she bought you a Dean, which is kind of cool, because she could have came home with a Hondo or something, or Court or something even worse than that. And the only reason why I say that, because if you're not a musician, like for example, my lady, she'll send me these. She'll go on Facebook. What do they call that? Facebook Marketplace. Yeah. Then she'll pick out these instruments, and she's like, "Hey, maybe you like this one." And I'm like, "It's $150." I said, you don't realize you can't go for cheap. So you can't see for cheap.
And you also can't go for broken.
No, absolutely not. And that's
why I'd rather buy cheap new than broken old.
Absolutely. But it's just so cool that she noticed that. So when did you? So you had a Sans amp that day that you were playing at the Hudson Water Club with Damage Radio. What was your? So you say you got a PV. You say you got a PV at first.
PV at first.
Right.
I got what did I get? I got the hotkey. I had the hotkey set
You
up.
talk about combos, stacks.
This was that was a stack. The hotkey was a stack. Then I sold that. I got an Ampeg 410 HLF. I still have that.
Nice.
The SBT 3 amp on top.
Oh.
But for the gigs that we were playing and the space that we had, basically it wasn't really feasible. So I did get a Mark Bass 210 combo, which I was bringing out, and it's super light. Doesn't take up a lot of room. And then I just even went smaller. And in like the last year or two, I was just using the Sans amp fly rig. And you do have to trust your sound guy. And I did use the in-ears, after a while as well. But, originally it was a little bit hit or miss, and, the monitor was breaking up. But we finally tuned it in, and then we wound up, going our separate ways. But
Wow.
it worked out. It worked out pretty well, though. I like the fly rig.
Personally, I'm on the edge of non-existence. I have my current rig is a Warwick Gnome 300 watt, weighs 2 pounds, but it's really kicking. And I got it's my original Harkey kickback, but I put a 12-inch Eminence in it after the head and eventually the speaker blew. But this thing packs so much power with my music, man, that I'm at full volume at 1.5 on the master and the gain. And it's just, I also go into a rig with a sound bin, but it overwhelms what I'm doing sometimes. So I actually flip it and use it as a wedge monitor right in my face.
Exactly.
And I'm really digging it. And but like you said, you're almost off the grid into the system at this point with all this technology.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I'm probably looking at Sans amp.
I want to comment on the fact that you mentioned that the in-ear monitors, which is a newer monitoring system.
You're reading my mind.
Yep. How do you adjust? Because I have great difficulty adjusting to them.
It takes, what my biggest challenge was with them was that you don't have the interaction with the band as much, so calling an audible became a little bit more difficult. Just the interaction was tough, not hearing the crowd as much. And, the good part was, you can kind of dial in your own mix. However, but you kind of, you're kind of sequestered from the rest of the world after you're dialed in.
So basically, you become Tommy.
Pretty much, yes. What I did find is if there's an overhead mic, that helps to interact a little bit, and you can hear everything. And I was able to hear all of the little interactions sometimes from the lead singer or from anybody that had a microphone that. It's like, hey, I need another drink, or hey, I need more in my monitor, or whatever it was. So you still are able to hear that a bit.
But what about that intensity? What about that bottom making the room move?
Yes, no, that's a good point. I think two things there. I think one is you feel it a bit from the subs, so you can still feel it a bit depending on the room, right? And then it also depends upon the mix that you have, because I usually have my mix in the in-ears. The bass is up pretty high. Then I have the vocals, the kick, the guitar a little bit, because I could usually hear him screaming from across the room, and all the vocals just to make sure that harmonies are decent. But
Okay.
but I'd say the bass is way up on top of most of that.
Do you feel that at some point when you started to play, do you actually have a voice? And when we say voice, as far as your own tone, or do you just plug in and say, all right, this sounds good, this sounds really nice, and this mix sounds cool, I'm ready to go?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I think I do have my presets on the fly rig. The one good thing is that it's not pre-programmed, but I know where the dials need to go, and there's a button to hit either the Sans amp or the VT bass. So I know which one I want for particular songs, and you can tweak it on the go. And I know this bass is usually pretty consistent, so
Okay.
I know what I'm going for. I know where where to put the settings. When I do switch basses, it's almost like starting over sometimes. And when we have we do switch bass guitars for detuned songs or for whatever it is, and sometimes depending on, all right, that one's a passive one, this one's an active one, and
It's a reboot.
yes, pretty much, yes. And if it's only for one or two songs, it's really annoying. But
Double reboot.
That's true.
No, I mean, because just getting back to what I was saying, and Anthony's question is a real valid one in the sense that in my case, I'm, like you, I'm playing, little rooms, you're stuck in a corner, my bass starts exploding with, whatever is coming through the back. We were talking to a good friend of ours, Lynn Sorensen from the West Coast, and he ended up covering the porthole on his cabinet to literally stop that. And I'm like, but if I do that, I might as well, unplug and go home. But what happens though is, to Anthony's question, half the time I already know where my knobs are going to go, and it doesn't matter what it sounds like, because it's literally not the most important part of the night. And I know if our friend Momo is listening, he would say, well, what are you doing? He would say, get your pedals going and make your voice. And I'm doing that more because I changed basses. I'm transitioning to a 6-string. Oh boy. I'm letting the world know.
No, plus a great wife.
But the bass has such a different tone and character. That when everything I thought that was original about everything I was doing with my music, man, putting, your tones in your hands, now it's going back into the bass and the pedals with this whole new adventure into 6 strings. Mm-hmm. And so, like right now I'm a freewheeler on a 4-string, but now I'm becoming this, conservative note nerd on my 6-string. And it's, I don't see people doing it. And at the same time, I'm looking at all these living legends on these 4-strings, and I'm going, did I make the right decision? Did I really want to do this? And because what I notice when I go back to my 4 is my confidence level is just exploding.
Sure.
And,
yes, sure.
And I bought the 6-string so I can practice more. As opposed to running out of real estate on a 4-string. On a 6-string, you go all day. Yeah. And now that I'm relearning it, and I just want to put a shout out to a bunch of our Case for Bass guests, because it's great to reach out and learn more. And my growth experience since we've started this it's been incredible. And not to talk more about me, but when you talk about what's going on stage in your voice, does the earbud literally standardize and take that out of your hands?
I wouldn't say so, because I think the earbuds basically just make sure that I'm still on key, I'm still playing the right thing. I'm not too worried about the voice coming through to me. I just want to make sure the voice comes through on the mains.
Right, that's the sound guy's job.
Yeah, that's his job. But and we've been lucky to have a bass player that's part of our sound group most of the time. And I'll reach out to him. I trust him pretty well, and I would reach out and say, "Hey, Glenn, how does it sound? Does the bass sound okay? High end okay? How are the mids?" And he's like,
first cat on camera.
First cat on
Sorry to interrupt you. I'm going to interrupt you twice. And when I talk about volatility with the sound guy, I'm talking about your last sound guy is When We Share. Actually.
Oh, okay, great. Yes, that was actually the first time that we used that guy. And
I know. I'm stuck with him. Don't worry.
And we were very fortunate to get him, and very fortunate that he was a great sound guy. So it was a kind of a shit show trying to get that show to actually get pulled off that day.
Yeah, no, he was. He's actually been my drummer for the last 3 or 4 years on gigs, as well as my sound guy.
Oh, okay.
And I had to pull him aside, and I go, "How come I got to hear from other people that you're a great sound guy? What are you doing with me?"
Yep. That's true. Greg did ask me. Greg asked. I told him about you as being a guest, and Greg said first question he asked was, "How was the sound?" When I said he was really good, and he goes, "Really?"
That's damn near impossible.
Yep. And I was like, "Okay."
Like you didn't have feedback and running drums.
Nope. Everything sounded good.
So he got his act together since he's since he played your show.
Yep.
That's a true story.
Let's talk about the basses now. Do you have one? You have a Spectre in your hand. That's the one that you were playing on Saturday night. Tell me a little bit about that one.
This is probably the most recent addition as well, and recent. It's probably about 3-4 years old already.
Okay.
So I mean, I have a red. They're both Euros. I have a red 4-string,
Okay.
and that was really one of my favorites. I've had that one probably about 13, 14 years,
Okay.
and I just loved the way it played. I loved the tone, and I wanted to get into a 5-string. And real quick funny story. I went to my local guitar center, and I live up in Connecticut, so it was around Hartford. And I was trying out all of these 5-strings, and one, sounded pretty good to me. It was an Ibanez. It was a Doug Wimbish model.
Okay.
And so I'm playing this, and we negotiate a price, and they wouldn't go any lower. And they're like, "Well, look, this one really was owned by Doug Wimbish. He lives in Hartford. He comes in here all the time and swaps out a lot of equipment and all of this."
Wow.
And so I got that, and that's to Greg's point, I kind of learned the 5-string on that one. And yes, it was a learning experience, and you're a little tentative. And I was using the B string as a thumb rest for a long time.
Sure. Sure.
But yes, and then I wound up getting more comfortable with the 5-strings, and I said, "Look, I got to get another Spectre." And this is the last one that I got. So the last 2 new basses I've gotten are probably the Spectre and the 2 Spectres, I guess, and I've got a lot of older ones as well.
So you feel that you're definitely a Spectre guy, like you're not a Fender Dean. Like Greg and I are both Fender DNA.
We love Fender DNA.
Fender P's, J's, owned all of them at some point.
But I bought cheap on the 6, and I'm not regretting it.
Yep.
I did. I did. Come to think of it, I did buy like a G&L. I think it was Indonesian model. I think it was, and it was okay. I wound up selling that one, but I do have a American P bass. I have Geddy Lee Jazz, fretless Warwick 4-string.
Nice.
What kind of strings?
I've got I forgot they're flat wounds, but I'm trying to remember which ones I wound up.
They're not labellas. You would say
no, they're not labellas, but and I did get an FNA, Warwick FNA. It's not the Jazzman. It's kind of this skinny little thing, and I from what I understand, like there was a dispute with Warwick and Alembic back in the day.
Yes, there was. Yes.
And I think what they said, well, what does FNA stand for? And I think the designer said, fucking not Alembic.
Fucking not Alembic.
Quick interrupting question: are you a 5 guy now, full time? Do you like the extended range?
I do. I bring it because it just, it allows for so much, easier positioning on playing some songs. And I mean, I got to tell you though, when I go back to the 4, it feels like you said, you just like, you feel a lot more confident. The neck is a lot thinner. I mean, that Geddy Lee neck almost plays itself. I love that thing.
Wow.
But yes, I always bring the 5, and even if I'm going to use the 4, most of the night I'll have it handy.
Awesome, dude.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, so this is my last question to you because we're about to come to an end. So, actually, no, not my last question.
Did you never have a last question?
You don't really have one.
We talk on the phone for 6 hours. After an hour and a half, it's like, oh, wait. Do you know about this? Yeah, dude, it's 5 hours in. I got to.
So, was there ever a point where you wanted to become a professional bass player?
Yeah, I think when I was in high school, I really wanted to go to school to either pursue music or art. And my art teacher, God bless him, he basically said, you should really go over to Europe. You guys play in a band. I've heard the band. You should go over there. They're really, especially I think it was Switzerland at the time. He was like, they're hurting for some talent, and you guys would make a killing over there. And it wasn't really an option for us. Mm-hmm. But so life gets in the way, and so you wind up paying the bills with one job, and the second best thing is just playing as a hobby or semi-professional as much as you can. But that's not to say that I didn't audition for bigger gigs, and I know there was always these auditions for Trans-Siberian Orchestra, and they were always holding auditions around. And I love those guys. I mean, I've met a number of them, and most of them are really cool guys. And
awesome.
I met the founder years ago, and super cool guy. Great with the kids. Gave the kids all jackets and silver dollars from like the 1800s.
Wow.
Unfortunately, he passed, but yes, it's it made a lasting impression, and all the musicians were top notch with those guys.
Awesome. Can you read music?
I cannot, and that's one of my bigger regrets. So okay. I've said during some of my hiatuses, or like when I have some time off from work, basically that's one of the things I really want to do. I mean, what I do now is, even when I have these ideas and beats are constantly going in my head, and and these melodies are constantly going in bass lines, and I almost have to hum them out and then play them out like this is what I was thinking of, and like, okay, so, and I'll write it out like I'll just tab them or something. But
did you take any classes in school? Music theory, band?
I did. Yeah, I did in high school. We took some music theory, and we had one really good teacher, and he actually pushed us to pursue music as well. Mm-hmm. But unfortunately, it wasn't in the cards, and friggin' accounting got in the way.
Okay. We understand.
But look, but I hate to say it, because there's the struggling musicians. Like, we interviewed a guy named Ivan Bodley, and he's doing well now. Mm-hmm. And of course, the big thing was Mike Vaseglia, who played with Susan Vega. A lot of these players would say the big issue is knowing when well, if you read, you're constantly working. If you don't read, then you got to get involved with a band that has
your fifth choice.
Yeah, exactly. So Mike had a steady gig with, who's it, Flo and Eddie?
Yeah, the Turtles. The Turtles.
Yeah.
Very good. He was our second interview. That was great. Yeah, I remember that.
Yep. Wow. So he got involved with them. Then they were
and he had a choice. He had a choice for the steady gig or the wild unknown, and he chose the wild unknown.
He chose the wild unknown. That was
chose the wild, and it paid off.
Yeah.
I mean, well, the Turtles are still playing. I mean, this was in the late '80s.
Yep.
Yeah.
And he had the choice to join an original act that eventually became a #1 MTV hit, #1 pop hit.
Wow.
And Suzanne Vega. He was on the ground floor, and because he had the confidence to take the leap, because now I'm reiterating, his father said, take the steady gig.
Exactly.
Of course, as a dad would do, right?
And he goes, I can't do it. I gotta try this.
Yep.
Yeah.
And same thing with Ivan Bodley. Ivan Bodley was just, I mean, right now he's in the last 4-week run of the Broadway show Tommy.
Yeah.
And an interview we never got was actually, he was the sub for Irio O'Farrell, and God took him too quickly, and he had gotten the slot. And one of the things about Ivan is Ivan plays like 6 nights a week, sometimes 5 nights a week.
Yep.
He's literally in the Humble Pie Legacy. He just did a wedding in Connecticut. He does like 5 shows a week in the pit for the Tommy show.
Yeah.
And but his credit is he's clocked on stage performances with 55 Hall of Fame inductees.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I keep
literally
mentally bugging him because now that he's in Tommy, he had a picture up with him and Pete Townsend, and he said, "No, we didn't actually get to perform on stage. That was me and him at the Empanada station." So,
which is close.
Ivan would be the definition of a working bass player. This guy,
forget it.
He's out there, man, and
forget it.
He's just tireless.
Yeah,
so,
and friendly and knowledgeable, and he was Stanley Clark's PR guy. He was the marketing guy for Stanley Clark, and he was the marketing for Living Color.
Living Color. That's how he ended up. That's how he ended up.
Bass is connected to this show. So
there you go. And quick story, we got off
back, and just to circle back, he went back to Berkeley and got his degree, and that's where he finalized all the foundations of learning and reading and performing with sheet music. And you got it. For anybody who doesn't know, just Google Funk Boy and Funk Boy Bodley, and you'll see. I mean, the credits don't end. You got like seven finger scrolls. To see what he's done and who he's done it with.
And he went there older. He was older when he went there.
He was 26.
26. That's right, when he went there,
Went back to go learn. So it got me thinking, and I've taken the first step on my path.
I am not going back at the age of 57. Sorry.
I'm not going to school, but I'm looking at music, and I'm looking at it.
You can hone your skills from home. Take a couple of online courses. Download some apps.
Yeah.
Do
you guys read?
Stuff. I read.
I can. Yes.
I'm not the best sight reader because
I'm not going to say sight exactly. I used to be. I was when I learned guitar, but I was 14 years old.
Greg and I shared the same teacher, Professor Rubin, in Ramapo High School.
At Ramapo High School for music theory.
You were forced in that position. I remember when I went to his class, I went there with a Horner bass and I pulled the frets out because it's, of course, a jockey thing to do back then. And I remember walking in there because, of course, prior to going to Ramapo, I'm going from Cat Junior High School to Ramapo, and my mom, we're looking through the curriculum, and I see bass. Didn't think upright. I just thought bass, cool.
Right.
So I'll take this.
Didn't say electric.
Yep, didn't say electric. So I took the bass. I ended up taking all the frets out, got some wood putty, wood tackle, whatever, filled in the gaps, bring it into class the first day of school, and I just remember the expression on his face, like, "What the hell is that?" That's exactly what he said to me, and I said, "It's a bass." And he goes, "No, it's not." Takes it from me and brings me into the room where they have the upright basses. There's 4 of them there. He goes, "You're playing this," and he literally that day gave me lessons on first position, half position, third position, second position, and once he's had that, I generally knew how to read, but not the best because again I'm in 10th grade. But I'd say within 3 months, I kind of got good at it because now we're there. And he's a bass player as well.
He was a bass player and a band leader.
Oh, okay.
So
a ranger conductor.
Absolutely. So here you have, so it was to my advantage that he was my teacher. Because
for sure.
When your part came up, he looked at you and he would literally move his eyes up and down to let you know what part of the board was.
On my end, with his experience, it was more interval training and the ear training and listening to what the space between notes are.
Mm-hmm.
So that, especially for the electric bass, where it's not really a reading position when you want to play Led Zeppelin and The Who and Judas Priest, you're basically thudding along underneath the guitar player, and he's showing you this and that, and you're not really concerned about riffing. You're just concerned about how much beer we're going to drink, between now and 11 p.m. And I had learned that all in playing guitar, And when it went to bass, a lot of it just, absorbed in and just melted away, so that I'm like, there's no guitar player out there that's going to throw me until, you start learning other kinds of music and realizing, oh, maybe I should learn how to read again. So,
it does help, to be honest with you.
I really want to go back and do that and learn it on my own. I mean,
there's a lot of videos on YouTube that can really just get you
plenty of videos.
Could do it online.
I recommend doing this. You pick the songs that you love the most, and you look for the transcriptions, because that will be much easier for you to learn. That, because if you say, let's say, like you're gonna see that and go, okay,
you just gotta break it down and really take it slow.
Absolutely.
Yes. And visually look and relate to where the notes are on the staff, and that, the whole quarter note, triplet, 16th note thing. Just no one's going to ask you to read and play for pay. So
exactly. Okay.
There's always a lot of rehearsal.
Absolutely.
Yes, sure.
All right. So now here's my final question to you.
Final question.
Yes. What would you tell someone who's interested in becoming a working bass player? I mean, look, you have your full-time job, but you can also say to them, hey, man, if you're doing it as a hobby, you get a full-time job to take care of your bills. You're able to own your home and not stressing about paying your bills. Or do you want to be the artistic type who's going to struggle a little bit, yet at the same time they get a chance to do what they want to do?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, and I'd say a couple of things. One is if you have a passion for this, and you want to play in bands, or if you want to play professionally, one thing that I've learned over the years is that, look, you're going to play with musicians that are a lot better than you. You're going to play with musicians that are not as good as you. And basically, you need to take the opportunity. Every time you play with someone that's better than you, it's a challenge for you to step up, right? And you got to step it up to be at least as good as them, if not, work to be better than them, and work so you can be a cohesive unit. And if you're playing with a number of people that aren't as good as you, it's basically your responsibility to help get them there to the same level, so you can be a cohesive unit. So I've always tried to either make sure that I'm stepping up my game, or at least helping people to step up theirs. So there's that aspect of it, from the perspective of doing this as a hobby or professionally. I say if you make sure that this is something you really want to do, either as a hobby or as a professional, and you need to basically work at it. It's work at your craft. And don't worry about how many notes you're playing. Make sure that you're just keeping the groove. And I've seen videos of Victor Wooten basically hitting one string and basically just keeping the groove. And we all know how he can play, but his priority is making sure that he's keeping that groove, and that's an art in itself. And making sure that you're always there on the one, and you're basically making sure you're keeping that groove going.
Awesome. Jim Matthew, bassist for Damage Radio.
Thanks so much, guys.
That was great. Really informative. I'm glad you've made the case for Bass Family. And
absolutely. Same here.
It's always informative, educational, and interesting to hear players' perspectives on where they started, where they are, where they're going.
Yep.
And all bases, great and small. And we all have our experience. We all have our moments. We all have ups and downs about our playing. And what we have is the confidence and the will to keep going.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much, dude. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, guys. And wait to hang with some local guys as well.
Yeah.
Really. We have to watch out for our locals, man.
Yeah, absolutely.